Hey, good evening, everybody. My name's Dirk Delirium on Facebook or Delirium Dirk. I prefer that you contact me on Dirk Delirium. I can reach out to you and answer questions that way direct. And again, welcome to Scared Sober Delirium Tremens. This is a series we're doing on working the steps live. And again, we have worked step 1 through 6, and that brings us up to 7. Just some real simple housekeeping first. I am not the face of AA, NA, CAHA, or NEA. I'm simply a face of recovery. I have been around programs of recovery for 3.5 decades, failed over and over again because I never worked these steps fearlessly, thoroughly, and honestly. When I finally did, interestingly enough, the obsession to use and drink has been lifted, and I gotta tell you, it's a fucking miracle. So hopefully this helps with some people that have questions on how to work the steps or what they might need to look at, or maybe it won't help you. If not, so what? If it helps one person, then everything is worth it. So anyway, we have worked step 1 through 6. Again, I don't have any particular brand of recovery that I prefer. I think that any of them can work, including church, NACAHA, SAGA, I don't care, A, as long as it has the basic 12 steps that are all derived from one certain book that I choose to follow. And again, you work them fearlessly, thoroughly, and honestly. If you do that and put the work into it, if it worked for me, it'll work for anybody, because again, I was absolutely hopeless. So that brings us up to step 7. And so what exactly is step 7? Step 7 states, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Okay, well, first off, who is him? What is him? I don't care if it's a him, her, it. It's a God of your understanding. It's the higher power. It's your concept of a higher power. I don't care what it is. This is not a religious program. Being said, as long as you know that there is something bigger than you, there is a God of your understanding, and you're not it, I'm not it, then I can begin to make progress. And that's all I had to accept in the beginning. And again, this has worked. So I do hope this helps. So feel free to peruse through step 1 through 6 if you haven't already, and it'll make a lot more sense to you that way. And they are posted right here on Delirium Tremens, which is Scared Sober Delirium Tremens here on YouTube. We also have a Facebook group that's called Alcoholics/Addicts Living Recovery. Living is all capitalized, and recovery has 3 exclamation marks. So again, Facebook group, search Alcoholics Addicts Living Recovery, and feel free to chime in there. We've got about 650 members, a little more, and we would welcome you there too. So appreciate that. Okay, so back to step 7. I broke this down into 9 questions, and we're going to do this in 2 parts. This is part 1, because again, short step. Humbly asked them to remove our shortcomings. Okay, remove them. Done. No, not the case. I broke this into 9 questions. Number 1, how has my understanding of my higher power grown? 2, how have the previous 6 steps prepared me for step 7? 3, how does being aware of my own humility help when working the 7th step? 4, how do I plan to ask God of my understanding to remove my shortcomings? 5, how does the spiritual principle of surrender work for me in step 7? 6, am I comfortable with prayer and meditation, even if it means making up my own? 7, has my sense of perspective or reality been out of proportion lately? 8, has there been a time, or have there been times, when I've been able to stop from acting on a character defect or defects and practice a spiritual principle instead? And 9, are there any shortcomings that have been diminished in their power over me or removed from my life? So like I said, there's a lot of meat there. So let's go ahead and start with question 1. How has my understanding of my higher power grown? And this is my answer for my original steps. Original step work, when I worked them fearlessly and thoroughly and honestly. All the rest prior to that was bullshit. And imagine that, it didn't work. So here we go. How has my understanding of my higher power grown? Answer, interesting question. When I came into the program of recovery, I was a self-described atheist and agnostic. I was. Not quite knowing what these really meant, I interpreted this as being a way to lash out at organized religion, which I did. Agnostic is a Latin word, ag meaning without and gnostic meaning knowledge. So I would go around telling people that I was without knowledge. I was agnostic, and I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't have knowledge. So being without knowledge, as a sponsor finally told me, meant I had room to grow. Amazing concept. There's a paragraph on page 49 of the book that I followed. It's a big blue book, and y'all can figure that out, but it's on page 49, and it says this. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritual-minded persons were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. And I wrote this, damn, I did that. When in fact these people had something I wanted. I used to make fun of all these people at church, calling out all their shortcomings. You know, they go and preach this and then they do that, you know, and it's a bunch of bullshit. They don't know what they're talking about, and I'm not going to follow that herd. When in fact a lot of these people were gainfully employed, they were productive members of society, they were able to provide for their families, they had a home, they weren't killing themselves slowly with alcohol, they weren't shooting shit in their veins, they weren't snorting stuff up their nose, man, but I was. So I didn't want to have anything to do with that. When in fact these people did have something I wanted, because I was sick of it. So by doing this, working this step and admitting that I was without knowledge, I had room to grow. Since that time, I have come full circle. My concept of God and my understanding is my own business, and it is. But if you ask me on Facebook, I'll tell you. It might surprise you. So I now have a higher power, who I call God, who I am able to have a personal relationship with, and this has made all the difference in my ability to both grasp and hold on to sobriety. Today, my God of my understanding has given me the ability to move forward and accept myself and others at face value. And that brings us to number 2. How have the previous 6 steps prepared me for step 7? The first 2 steps were laying the groundwork. I was beat into a position of being powerless. I was completely defeated. I was hopeless. And I was beat down. At this point, my life was clearly unmanageable. I was undoubtedly insane with my actions and my thoughts, clearly, at least in my manner of thinking. So realization of this was simple. Step 1, that I was alcoholic and could not manage my own life. I can't. Step 2, that probably no human power could have relieved my alcoholism. God of my understanding can. He can. And then step 3, that God could and would if he were sought. My God of my understanding, fucking let him. I can't, he can, let him. So this led to the decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of that God as I understood him. This was followed by step 4, which was a huge lesson in honesty. That is, honesty with myself. By being and practicing this honesty, I was able to both fearlessly and thoroughly work the step. I have fallen short on this step in the past. That's step 4. And I fell short on it with myself. I bullshitted myself. Oh, that wasn't a reason why I drank or used, so fuck it. I'm not going to put it down, because I don't want to share that with myself, another human being, or the God of my understanding. They were things that embarrassed me, humiliated me, and I didn't want to talk about. So I didn't put them down. And once I did that with one, that trailed on to 2, 3, 4, 5 other examples, and that's what led me back to drinking and using. I know it. So I was able to work this both fearlessly and thoroughly. I fallen short on this step in the past. All worked well for a while, and then guess what? I got drunk and used again. So this proved to me that I had to be both fearless and thorough from the very start, or I will fail again. This brought me to step 5. I had to share all these resentments with myself, God of my understanding, and another human being, which was my sponsor, out loud, in order to begin to clear away the wreckage of my past. And part of this honesty meant sharing the things which were embarrassing or that I was ashamed of. Again, this is where I had failed in the past. At this point, if I failed, I would drink and use again. And if I drink, and I capitalize and underline this, I will die. There's no doubt. I've been there, as you know if you've watched the other videos. And I can't let that happen. For me, that needed the help of my higher power, and talk about a fucking paradigm shift. Talk about a paradigm shift for this alcoholic and addict. I couldn't do it, self-will failed, and I had to trust in something I couldn't see, touch, or feel. I can feel it, but inside I can't touch it. So that reflects both an example of how my idea of a higher power and growing and evolving, but also how this step has contributed to my readiness for this particular step, step 7. Last, being that step 7 is primarily focused on humility, it was important to list, focus, and understand my character defects, which we did in step 6. Being able to recognize these defects was the first step in correcting them as they crop up and identifying spiritual principles to relapse them with, and or rather replace them with. Relapse, shit, no. So I'm going to reread that. This is correcting them, the first step in correcting those character defects as they crop up and identifying spiritual principles to replace them with. Yeah, we do know all about relapse, don't we? At least I do. And with a list of defects like mine, this was an eye-opening exercise, each and every time. Being said, thoroughly working these first 6 steps has put me in a position to both recognize my shortcomings and ask my God and my understanding to remove them. All right, so question 3. How does being aware of my own humility help me when working step 7? As said, step 7 specifically deals with humility, so the real question is, how can I practice it in all of my affairs? I believe, because of personal experience, because of trial and error, that without some degree of humility, no alcoholic or addict can stay sober. Can't happen. If we think we're God, we're fucked. Period. And this goes beyond simply staying sober and transfers directly into being happy. We can be dry and miserable, not use and not drink, but not have that humility, and we are just gonna hate life. I did, and I did it for years. Tried it twice for years. Sucked. Humility is often misunderstood. It's confused with humiliation. These are actually polar opposites. We are driven to success, or what we perceive as success, by our own achievements. What we miss, or at least I missed, is that humility has to be grasped as a way of life. This is a degree of happiness as opposed to humiliation. Without humility, I lack the perspective to see that character building and spiritual values must come first, rather than material, social, and psychological satisfactions, which are not the purpose of living. So, I have to see humility as a necessity. This allows me to gain a vision of humility as an avenue to true freedom. And that says a lot, especially for an addict and an alcoholic like me. I mean, I did not want to admit that there was something bigger than me. I always wanted to be my own higher power, my own God and my understanding, and I failed each and every single time. All right, the 4th question, and we're going to end there, is how do I plan to ask God of my understanding to remove my shortcomings? This is really simple. I don't expect my shortcomings to be alleviated, vanished, removed, as in fact my desire to drink and use was, and it was absolutely vanished. That's a fucking wholesale miracle, as I've stressed before. But rather, as my shortcomings crop up, I need to ask on a continued daily basis. So I have to be prepared to first recognize when my shortcomings crop up, 2, be able to address them rather than react. I need to respond, which takes time and thought. And by doing that, I can then ask my higher power, my understanding, for the right direction. And if I try to do that on a continued and daily basis, I'm going to succeed, and I have succeeded. It's great. Am I going to be right every time? No. Am I going to fall short? Absolutely. Am I going to be aware of it? Yes. And then as we fast forward in the steps, I can recognize that at the end of the day and ask for a better way to do things, and then correct those shortcomings and make amends with anybody that I pissed off. So, but that's down the road. We'll get to that. So in the meantime, I just need to be conscious and aware of that. And I am able to do that today, and I'm proud to say that the obsession has been lifted, and it allows me to practice these principles in all my affairs. All right, so that's where we're going to end. We're going to pick up with question 5 through 9, and we'll shoot that segment in the next 2 days, and we'll post that as Working Step 7, Part 2. So it lists afraid of Step 7, don't be. Do this fearlessly and thoroughly. Do all 12 of them. You will be amazed before you're halfway through. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Again, you can direct any questions or comments here on Scared Sober Delirium Tremens, or you can shoot them directly to me at Delirium Dirk or Dirk Delirium. Again, I prefer Dirk Delirium. Now, we got a birthday party for one of my sponsors. It's about to go down in the background, and we're going to have a fucking awesome party, and then we're going to have an awesome recovery meeting, which we do 3 nights a week here. So let's do it. And what's that? Come again. I can't hear you. Sorry. What?
Subscribe.
What?
Subscribe.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, thank you, Sponsy. Don't forget to, when you open up the YouTube channels, hit the subscribe button and you'll be able to see all the videos. And thank you, Jay. I'll just say his first initial. Mr. Anonymous, recovering alcoholic. I appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you guys. So you guys have a fantastic night. Thanks for viewing, and look forward to see you soon. Out.